How's it going, Shannon?
I made it.
You made it. We got somebody else who showed up late too here. Just trying to see who this is, and then we're gonna get started right away.
Okay.
We're running short on time.
Sorry about that, guys. All right, Chad, you're recording, so you're good to go.
All right, we're gonna try to find out who this is. Shannon, is this you?
What is it?
That says waiting for name. Trying to find out who's on the phone right now.
No, it shouldn't be me. Oh, it's Devin. It's Devin.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second, Devin. Devin, I got you down. Okay, perfect. All right, since the 6 o'clock one is much smaller usually, I already got you guys down for attendance, so I don't need to do roll call right now. So we'll be good. Let me minimize this a little bit. Oops. All right, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Yep. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to review the Super 6. I know in some of the presentations we've done in seminars, we talked a lot about the Super 6. So now it's going to be a little bit more about progression and regression, just so you guys have a resource for it and why we want to utilize the Super 6 within our programming. So when we're looking at Super 6, and what I'm going to talk about today is why we do balanced programming. You know, what are the Super 6, some examples of each, and some application as far as regression, progression goes. When we're looking at balanced programming, oh, okay, Danny, I got you. I'll write you down. Thank you. And if you guys can all have your mics on, that'd be great, because we'll be going through questions. But as far as balanced programming, clients are going to be set up for injury and pain issues if we don't keep the balance, because they already typically have muscle imbalance issues coming in just because of everyday life. We're so anterior dominant with quads and chest. Very little do the back and hamstrings dominate general population or even athletes for that matter. So we want to make sure we're addressing those issues for them. Common design flaws we usually see in training protocols when we're writing them is that sometimes people forget shoulders are a push movement. So when you're looking at your push-pull ratios in your programming, understand that if you're doing a shoulder press, that's still considered a push. So you're going to have to get a pull again to counter that movement, okay? Because we typically want that 1-to-1 ratio. Sometimes we see lack of progression, or sometimes there's too fast of progression, okay? So don't be afraid to move your clients up when it's necessary, but don't move them too fast either, because that's just another chance of injury as well, okay? So just be careful with your progressions. Sometimes people misunderstand knee dominant, hip dominant, so make sure you know the difference between those two. And it can change pretty quickly just based on the movement. Like, for example, lunges will change from a knee dominant to a hip dominant depending on which one you do. Okay? Forgetting glutes and hips are part of the core as well. Okay, so sometimes when we talk about adding core, we're typically always talking about that entire area. You know, glutes, hip, abdomens, things of that region. Programming machines for healthy clients is another thing we see sometimes. When we're looking at healthy individuals, we typically don't need to have them do leg curls on a hamstring machine. We can get them doing much better things, like teaching them hip hinge and getting them to do an eccentric movement with the hamstring, which is typically how they work anyway in real life. So just kind of watch for that. Once in a blue mode machines are okay. I know a while back I gave a seminar on that. So use that seminar as a resource of when it's okay to use machines. But typically, we need to get them moving outside of machines for everyday life. So when we're looking at balance programming, as far as balance goes, we're typically going to aim for 1-to-1 ratios in a lot of these things, okay? So push-pull, usually 1-to-1, but a lot of times, if you guys do more pull than push, it's typically not a problem because they're usually weaker there anyway. So you guys can kind of load up the pull a little bit more if you guys want in your programs. Watch for that knee dominant, hip dominant ratio. Try to keep them 1-to-1 as well. Same thing that goes with hip dominant straight leg and also to bent leg. Try to keep those to a 1-to-1 ratio. Core anterior lateral, what you're looking at there is a 1-to-1 ratio with them as well. Everything you do anterior, make sure you do lateral when it comes to that core work. And it doesn't have to be all done in one day. Okay, so when I'm talking about your ratios, this is literally spread out through the week. Okay, so it doesn't have to be all thrown into one workout. So Super 6, to go over quickly, upper push, upper pull, knee dominant, hip dominant, core anterior, core lateral. So those are your super six you're looking at. Now there's subcategories of each one, like for example, upper push, there's horizontal and vertical. If you want to get more complex, you want one-to-one ratios to those as well, typically. So we're going to go over some examples now, and I'm having you guys participate a little bit and help me out, and maybe have some ideas on what you guys have used in the past as well. Okay. So we're looking at our upper push horizontal. Our primary movement we're looking at right now is going to be a push-up. Okay. So let's say someone cannot do a body weight push-up. What would you guys have them do as a regression option?
On your knees.
Incline push-ups on a Smith machine or a box or something like that, or modified from the knee.
Yeah, excellent. Great. Yeah, you guys are on point. So typically kneeling push-up or incline work. Make sure, like, obviously you're going to work your way down. These guys go through it. What do you guys do for progressions in your movements? So let's say they're great at push-ups. What do you guys do?
Weighted push-ups.
What was that, Alyssa? Sorry, I couldn't hear you too well.
Weighted push-up?
Yeah,
Oh,
weighted.
Yep. Excellent. Yep. So a lot of times you could do foot elevated even. Or yeah, Devin, a Bosu push-up. Yeah, adding instability as well. That's another good option. Some teaching tools, guys, kind of help you. Make sure they got perfect posture as if they're standing. Sometimes they can lose the hips pretty easily. So keep that core tight. And elbow awareness is a big one too. A lot of times they like to flare their elbows out. So watch for that as well. So when you guys are working at your upper push vertical, when we're doing, we're going to have the base movement as a dumbbell standing overhead press. What would you guys do for regression of this movement if they're not able to do this movement at all? Typically what I'm talking about here is not so much strength, but more mobility. Okay, they can't really even get the head overhead. That standing position. What would you guys do for a regression, do you think? Any guesses? Okay, if you don't know.
No.
No? Okay, that's fine. Somebody want to take a shot at it, maybe? All right, cool. So let me help you guys out with this one. So regression option, you can do a half kneeling landmine press. So if their shoulder mobility is really bad, you can start them here. It's a good starting point. Or even if their core is too weak to even be in that standing position, it's a good starting point. Or you could even do a half knee dumbbell overhead press if their shoulder mobility is okay. As far as progression options, let's say they can do a dumbbell standing overhead press just fine. What would you guys do for progressions? Any ideas there?
Could increase the weight by 5%.
Okay. Yeah, you could always add load. Devin, yeah, push press is a good option. Yeah. So when I ask you guys about progressions, typically it's going to be what's the next movement. So we can typically always add load, which is a correct answer. But when I'm with the presentation, at least I'm going to be looking at movement. So yeah, so progression, you could do alternating overhead press or a dumbbell push press is another good option. So I'm going to make fun of myself here real quick for you guys. So you see in this image here, when I'm doing the overhead press, you'll see on the right side when I'm pressing up, you see guys how my arm is not fully extended above the head? Do I want to take a guess why that's happening to my body? Any
Maybe
guesses?
a shoulder or elbow injury.
Yeah, it's going to be a mobility issue for sure. So what's happening here is I have really tight lats. So a lot of times if your clients have a tight back, they might not be able to fully extend all the way up. So I've been having some lat issues the past couple of weeks. So it's been super tight on that side. So I'm working through it with some therapy and everything. But in the image, that was causing an issue. Okay. So sometimes if your clients can't fully overextend, it might not totally be just the shoulder itself. It could be a lat issue or something coming from the back. So a good side note for you guys to look at. But as far as coaching points, aim for the ears always. So a lot of times your clients will try to almost like press forward when they do it. So you want to press straight through the ears when they come up. And then address any kind of shoulder mobility issues. So for example, here, my shoulder mobility issue is due to my tight lats, okay? Upper push horizontal. So our base movement's gonna be the bent over row. What would you guys do for a regression if someone cannot do a bent over row for your horizontal pull? Take a stab at it. And, hold on, Devin, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to address that for sure. All right, so some regression options for you guys. CDK row, yeah, you got it. Thanks, Devin. All right, CDK cable row or an inverted row is a good option, right? On TRX, it gets them in that movement, in that pulling movement. Because a lot of times bent over row, it might be tough for them to get in that athletic position. So these would be some good regressions for that movement. Still get that horizontal pull. Progression options. What do you guys think? Someone can do a bent over row. Any movements come to mind for progression? No? Okay. So progression, Pendlay row is a really good one, or a renegade row. So right here, I'm presenting the renegade row. Make sure when they're pulling up by the hip like that. All too often, people will pull way too tight and high when they pull up on that row. So watch for that. All Americans, basically what that is you can do a push-up along with the row. So that's kind of a push-pull movement all in one. That's a little bit more advanced, but it's something you guys can add into your programming, and it works great. It hits your core hard too. Pendlay row is basically a bent over row from the floor. So it's kind of a power movement. A lot of my power athletes do it for that kind of progression. So it's something fun you can add in for a bent over row when you advance them is doing a Pendlay row. Teaching tools, make sure you show spinal awareness with them. So watch their spine at all times. A lot of times they're going to want to roll forward, especially when they're first learning a back movement. They're typically always high and tight. So make sure they open that chest up and get the shoulders back when they're pulling. So coaching for that would be chest out, shoulders back. Another one I like to use is elbow me. So if they're in that seated position, when you're doing the row, for that seated position, kind of teach them to say, hey, elbow me in the back so they're pulling all the way back through. Because all too often when they do a pull, they're using too much bicep and they're pulling here instead of down here. Okay? So watch for that. Also, you can teach them to pinch the fingers. So go between the scapula, put your fingers there, and say, all right, pinch my fingers. I'll teach them to roll those shoulders back and get that scaption going for them. It kind of helps them feel that awareness of that. So let's do upper pull vertical, okay? So this is going to be your vertical kind of pulls. So as far as pull-up go, what would you guys do for a regression for a pull-up? What do you think, Alyssa?
Or an assisted pull-up?
Okay. Okay, cool. So for regression, let's talk about that. So Gravitron assisted pull-ups would be great, or band pull-ups. Here's the reason on lat pull-down. Well, I don't suggest that right away. You guys definitely could, but it's a one that people screw up a lot when they do it on their own, and it's a tough movement to get down. In fact, when you're trying to teach them to pull straight down, what happens all too often when people do a lat pull-down, they start turning it into a horizontal, okay? So it's actually a tough movement for people to get down, to get that straight down pull when you guys are looking for that pull-up. Like in a pull-up, it comes more natural. So we want to try to switch more towards the Gravitron pull-up or a band pull-up when you guys do it if possible, okay? As far as progression options, what do you guys think would be a good progression? You guys have your clients do.
A weighted pull-up by a belt?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, adding load, cool. That's so what you guys can do is do a weighted pull-up or even a towel pull-up. You can see me right here doing the towel pull-up. It's a tough one, and it's great for grip strength. So if you got clients wanting to increase their grip strength, I would start them doing it assisted, so they feel a little bit more safe. And then you guys can eventually add doing body weight like I'm doing here. One thing to watch for though on the towel pull-ups, the towels we had at this facility when I was demonstrating this were a little bit slippery. So I was a little scared to do it. So just be careful when you guys are selecting your towels that they're not like the slippery kind. Make sure they're something that can actually be held onto it and they're not going to fall. As far as coaching points, elbows down to the side. So all too often they flare out and back, turning it more to a horizontal, which you see a lot with the lat pull down. Oh, you guys there?
Yep.
I lost you guys for a second. My broadcast went down. Sorry, guys. That was weird. All right. Are we back? Can you see my slides?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, that was weird. All right. And then full extension, make sure they're getting all the way down as well. So watch out for that throw lat pull down, which is basically see the guys in the gym laying way back when they do their pulls. All right, core anterior. Let's say front planks to primary. What do you guys do for regressions on this? You guys should get this one.
Bump them up to an incline, maybe.
Sure. Yeah. So front plank regression, you can elevate them. Elevate front plank like I'm demonstrating, or even kneeling. Great. Good job. Arc progression, what do you guys think from a front plank?
On a Bosu ball?
Sure. Unstable surface.
Or a regular plank to a prone plank.
Sure. Yeah, and you can do a body saw is another good one. That's the one I'm demonstrating here. If you guys want to use that, put the feet on the sliders, and they literally push back and forth with their arms when they do it, and they got to keep the core tight. It's a tough one to do, but it's a fun one you guys can add in easily. Coaching points, keep the spine in line, watch the head and hips. Well, all too often they try to raise their head when they do this kind of stuff. Keep everything in line, keep the core tight. Adding loads is easy progression as well for you guys, like I mentioned. So if you guys want to go right to easy progression from a plank, just add load on the back. Great for active recovery too, the front plank. So when you guys are doing your circuits and you want to get this kind of movement in, it's a great spot to do it in active recovery area because they're still doing something. Core lateral side plank. What would you guys do for regression on this one? Oops. Sorry, I clicked.
Maybe pulsing.
So kneeling side plank or on an unstable surface would be an option for you guys. Big one on this is just watch their shoulders. When you're looking at progression, what do you guys think? They can do a side plank just fine.
Yes, maybe a side crunch on a stability ball.
Sure, yep. That'd be a hard one. Yeah, definitely. And Devin, yeah, you added another good one there. So yeah, both of you hit it. So you can do a side plank, hip dips, or even like a leg raise, or you can add an unstable surface. This one I'm demonstrating the hip dip. That's a one I like to use a lot. It's a good one. Coaching points. Once again, watch the shoulders and hips. Those are going to move a lot, especially when you're teaching them the hip dip. So watch for that. Honestly, guys, anything over 60 seconds, you might as well increase them to the next progression, whether it's adding load or whatever. Because anything over 60 seconds isn't really worth it anymore for this kind of movement. So you might as well move them up to the next spot. Plus, it's wasting too much time in your circuits. Another great active recovery option as well. Okay, when you guys move them through the intense stuff. All right, straight leg hip dominant, loaded RDL. What do you guys think would be a good regression for this movement? Because this is a tough movement to teach people. What have you guys done in the past? Any ideas?
I use like a resistance band to do like an RDL instead.
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. Kind of teach them. Yeah. Lighten the load. Sure. Another regression option is, let's say they're really bad, you could do a hip hinge against a wall, which I'm demonstrating here. That's a really good, so if you guys got people that just are not getting the movement, this would be a great start point, is doing a wall RDL. It'll teach them to shoot the hips back and get that hip hinge. Otherwise, you can do a dowel full range of motion as well, teach them that movement. As far as progressions go, some good options for you guys. Single leg, obviously, so you can do single leg touch or single leg dumbbell opposite is what I'm demonstrating here, okay? When you guys are looking at coaching points here, neutral spine, set shoulders, so all too often they're gonna wanna round the shoulders again, so make sure those shoulders are set back. Make sure the load is close to the body as well, okay? So they should be literally touching the shins. If they're doing a barbell RDL, that weight should touch the shins all the way up and through, okay? If they get too far away from the body, it increases the load on the low back, and that's not what we want. We want to still hit the low back, but we want to load the hamstrings on this one, okay? So keep the load tight to the body. Things I do with like athletes in the past or clients in the past would be like a hip check. So I did work with a lot of high-level hockey players. So if I told them hip check, they instantly knew to shoot their hips out. If they're not a hockey player, you could teach them to say, don't let me pass with my butt only. So that'll kind of teach them to stick their butt out. Some things to kind of get those coaching points across. Make sure you keep that slight knee bend and tell them not to squat. Often they'll try to squat instead of just bend the knee and hinge at the hip. They'll try to make it a knee dominant, and we don't want that. Okay? So watch for those movements. Bent knee hip dominant, that would be something like a glute bridge hold. So this one, I'm going to walk you through it on this one because this one might be tough for you guys. So as far as the regression goes, a lot of times the first starting point is that glute bridge hold, right? Sometimes though, just so you know, their glutes will not continue to fire when they're holding it because they're weak. So what happens is you actually have to do reps with them, okay? So first and foremost, they have to have hip flexor mobility to even activate their glutes. So if their hip flexors are super tight, you're not going to get your glutes to fire properly. So make sure they're mobile first. So here's me demonstrating a hip stretch for the hip flexor. And then what you could do is get them doing a double leg bridge for reps. So they'll come up for 1 to 2 seconds, hold it, and bring it back down. Because what will happen with clients is if they're weak glutes, they'll go up and fire for a few seconds, but then they'll still keep their hips up, but the glutes will shut off, okay? So what we want to do is basically get them rep, hold, come back down, and as they increase their strength through that, then they can go more to a hold. Progression options from here. You could do a loaded glute bridge, or do a single leg glute bridge. Coaching points, make sure that they have to have hip flexor mobility in order to do it. So I always test their hip flexor mobility first and then progress them through. Watch the hips as well when they're doing these movements. Make sure you're getting full extension so the glutes actually fire more and they're not just going up through the motions. Another great active recovery option as well to include in your programming when you guys are writing your circuit. All right, so knee dominant is going to be your body weight squat will be like your primary. What have you guys done in the past for regression?
Stability ball squats on a wall.
Yeah, awesome. Excellent. Yep. So you could do that, ball against the wall, like you said. Another favorite one of mine is TRX squat because it allows them to work on full range of motion, still work in free rein, but allow them to feel a safety marker, like they have something to hang on to. And as they get stronger, more efficient, they use their arms less and less for assistance. Progression. So if they can do a barbell, or excuse me, body weight squat, what would be some progressions in movement you guys could have them do?
Counterweight, goblet, barbell squats.
Yeah, wide variety. Yep, goblet squat, loaded back squat. Nice job, guys. Coaching points, elevate their heel if they have ankle mobility issues. So I mentioned that in the squat tutorial I've done before. So just put a couple plates underneath their heels if it's an ankle mobility issue, and they'll magically keep a much better body position. So try that. That'll help a lot. Aim for full range of motion if possible as well. So what I mean by that is with our clients, if we can get them doing a full squat, and I mean that's like deep, not like just parallel, that's even better for them. So if you guys can get your people squatting more efficiently, you're only going to get better at life. Okay? So I'm going to wrap this up here for you guys because I know we're getting tight on time. But final thoughts, just kind of some take-home messages for you guys. Each of the Super 6 should be implemented at some point through the week. Okay? So just kind of watch that within your programming and make sure they're in there somewhere. Okay? We want to keep it balanced. Then check your ratios as well. Okay? So I want you guys to review your ratios that you guys are currently working with through our clients. So just grab a random client of yours, kind of look at it, write down the ratios, actually mark down how many pushes you have to pulls, and kind of see how you're doing. Sometimes you might find some, accidental mistakes when you had a shoulder press in there counting as a push, and you didn't count it as a push. So kind of watch for that. No need to reinvent the wheel anyway with your programming, guys. If you guys got a really good skeleton that works, keep using it. Just modify for the client, okay? You don't need to rewrite everything for every program. We do the same thing with athletes, right? When they come into the university, we have a set plan for them, and then we modify for the athlete based on what they can handle. So don't always reinvent the wheel. It's also generally okay to have a greater pull to push ratio for most general population because most of the time they're pushing too much. So you're okay if you got a higher pull ratio when you check your ratio. Okay? As far as the quiz goes, we will skip over that because we're out of time, but you guys did very well. Thanks for your participation. You guys can use this for a resource if you guys want, just for a good starting point when you guys are looking at progression and regressions. But good job today, guys. Appreciate the feedback. Also, if you guys got any things you want to feedback to me through email, that's great as well. Okay? All right, thanks, guys. Have a good day.